Welcome back to another episode of TV Toastmasters. I'm your host, Erik Bergman, and tonight we're going to take a journey to where art intersects with science. I have a great guest tonight. She's an artistic creative consultant, an animator, and a fellow Toastmaster. So let's welcome Cyrene Domogala. Welcome to TV Toastmasters, Cyrene.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. I think we're going to talk about some interesting things because your work as an animator, in a way, is a method of explaining complex topics like science, scientific topics, medical topics, all sorts of things, chemistry. And maybe people think that art and science are very different, but you seem to have skills in both areas that you can use and apply to help clients solve business problems and help them communicate to audiences. So maybe you can start by just saying what it is you do as an animator and how you got into the business.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with how I got into the business. I worked for Intel for a very long number of years, and I was doing very similar work there. I started off as a graphic designer, and then kind of went through a journey as that happens, and ended up helping people craft messages and organize their thoughts, not just the animation and the graphics, but really pull that thought together. And I did that enough times where people were commenting on it as a skill that I picked up on it and thought, well, maybe I should continue this at a more deliberate pace. And so the animation that I do is, and they're called explainer animations, particular, is that what I do is I work with tech and science companies and businesses to craft a message that's really succinct and easy for laymen to understand, so just the general public. And then it makes it really useful in that way, because almost every business struggles with how to tell their message, even if it's not in tech and science. But there's so much complexity around those topics, and we know that. So where it really gets interesting for me is I'm not bothered by that by any means. I was raised in a home with engineering and science, as well as picking up on that art. So where it really gets interesting is, how do you move from all of that information to something that is an animation at the end? And I think that's where most people get interested, is like, well, how do you come up with that stuff?
Right. Where do your ideas come from?
Yeah.
How did you know that this was the right approach?
Yeah, and it's not magic, as they say. And I think most artists and designers will tell you it's not magic. It is a process. And my process is to take a lot of interviews, including with the clients, let them tell me what they know, and kind of go through a 20 questions kind of deal. And then I'll also take all their materials, anything I can dredge up on my own. I'll go off and do research, and then I'll come back with, here's what you told me. Here's the supporting information I went and found on my own. Here's this message I've crafted for you, which in my case with the animations is usually about 500 to 600 words. That's not very much, but you can tell a lot with just 500 words and 3 minutes of visuals to support what you're saying. So that's the gist of it, without trying to go into the whole lineup of that process. So I detect a question maybe floating there.
Yeah, let's see. So a client calls you and says, I want an animation. I have this scientific process to explain. Can you give an example of a company you've worked with, maybe that where you took a complicated topic and made it easier to understand, and tell us how you worked through that?
There was a company down in Wilsonville that wanted to do an animation on and the fertilizer that they were selling. And they knew all about the fertilizer, and they had a great repertoire with the farmers, their audience, but they weren't sure exactly how to say what they wanted really succinctly and clearly, and in a way that would resonate with the people they were trying to talk to. So what they wanted me to do was obviously the animation, but also craft that message. So the process then is, I think I talked to the client for probably 3 or 4 hours, just pulling all of the information he could give me. And most people don't realize exactly how much they know until you have someone else asking those questions and really pulling it out. And once I feel like I kind of pulled it dry, I probably went off for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days and just went through all of that information. And some of that is understanding the terminology that he'd given me. And he was talking a lot about the chemistry in the soil in particular. So I had to learn, brush up on my chemistry a little bit and how all of that exactly was happening. And then once that has happened, I can create a script. So we always start with a script because you have to craft the message before you can get to visuals. That's how it always works, unfortunately. Sorry. And if you don't have that, there's no design or picture that's going to match the story you're going to tell if you can't come up that story first. So once we've arrived on that script, what will ultimately be read by a voice actor later down the line, then I'll go off and create storyboards. So this helps people and clients understand what it's kind of going to look like, but I don't use color because people kind of get sidetracked on, it's not the right color. And that's not important at that
sketches,
stage.
line drawings.
Line drawings, and maybe a little bit of shading, but just to get an idea of, okay, here's what it could look like. Is this matching the thought that you have in your head? And because they're line drawings, they're really easy to change.
Right.
Which is the important part, early in the process, because the farther along the process of an animation or most designs is that it gets a lot harder to change it later on down the line because it's just exponentially more work that just gets piled on. So if we can really figure out what we're doing at the start, it just makes everything so much easier, both in my time and the client's time and the money that's getting spent trying to fix things later down the line. So we've done the research, we've got the script, we've got the storyboards. Now comes all that production work. I need to engage with a voiceover artist, get them to read the script. So I have that audio file. I need to find some music, sound effects. And then, of course, I have to design all of the art assets that will ultimately end up in the animation. And that is a whole process, takes a couple of weeks. Usually you can make it faster, but there's that trade-off, which we discussed in a previous conversation, between do you want it fast, do you want it cheap, or do you want to, what's the third one?
Do you want it good?
Good, high quality, sorry.
Fast, cheap, or good? Which two would you like? Because we can't do all three.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's funny how people try to make it work, and it's sorry, gotta pick just 2 of them. And so you go through the art process, we build all that up, and then finally we get to the animation phase, and that's where you set everything in motion. And in case anyone is wondering, that's all done for me in Adobe products, because that's really robust and useful. And then we get to the end, we have an animation, and hopefully the client is very happy because I brought them through every step so that they could be really clear on what was happening and not left in the dark. 'Cause no one likes that feeling of, what are they doing?
and here I thought that you would just sit down with them and pull out your drawing pad and draw some cute character or show beautiful pictures, and they would say, oh, that's exactly what we want. Yes. No, it begins with research, understanding the science, doing your own background checking, and then story, script, writing. Finally, you get to the sketching part, and then the animation and the production of the animation.
Yeah. And I think what people really enjoy about creating an animation is that, yes, it's an animation and it's great, you get to show it on YouTube or wherever you're going to end up posting it, but having gone through the process, so bringing the clients along through all those questions and seeing how things get visualized, they themselves start to get a lot clearer on what they're doing. And I've seen it happen again and again and again, where of course they do their product, they've been working on it constantly, but that's a different monster than communicating all that you know and experience to someone else who has no clue
right.
what that is. And I think when people are explaining their passion, whatever it is they're working on, it's so easy to talk about these, the lingo or the words that only you really understand or your peers understand, and that loses other people that you might want to bring on board with you. They're investors, or you're trying to get employees, or you're just trying to get out there and network and really get that message out there. Maybe you're trying to sell, and that can be hard if you're so mired in all of that nitty-gritty, close to the heart way of explaining something. And what I bring to it is, it's all the same information, it's just tweaked so that other people understand it as well as you do. Maybe not on the same level, the same depth that you do, and it will take a lot for other people to know that much, but it'll be a starting point. It's like opening a door that lets other people come in and ask those deeper questions, which is a lot of fun.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm having a lot of fun with this, and we'll have more to discuss in the second half of our interview. Now, right now we're going to take a short break. Please stay tuned to TV Toastmasters. My guest tonight is animator Cyrene Domogala, and she'll be back with more on the art and science of explaining complicated topics.
Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Taylor and I'm with TV Toastmasters. My home group is Feedbackers in Beaverton, Oregon. I first joined Toastmasters for a couple reasons. I was nervous. I had trouble speaking in front of others. I needed some help. And when I joined Toastmasters, not knowing what to expect, I learned several things. One, it gave me the confidence to speak in front of others. I learned how to take constructive criticism. I benefited from that. That benefit was the confidence to get a job. When I took the suggestions in the club, when I started speaking in front of a group and remained speaking through my role, doing table topics, getting topics that you're unaware, learning how to think on your feet, learning how to speak on your feet. I first started working managing the Berkshire Hathaway account. I started as a back office role, not the face of the company. It didn't take long until I was dealing directly with the executives. Today I give executive briefings for Verizon Enterprise in the highest level in the enterprise space. And I'm grateful, and I owe all of that to Toastmasters. Thank you.
We're here again at TV Toastmasters. I'm Erik Bergman, and we're going to get right back to our guest, Cyrene Domogala. She's an animator who uses science and art to help explain really complicated topics so that even laymen like me can understand them. Thank you so much for talking about science and the animator's art and how you combine research and deep storytelling with visuals to help make stories clear. And you are a member of Toastmasters yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's your club? Where does it meet? And why did you get involved?
Yes. I go to the Walker Talkers Club, which is held at the Willow Creek PCC campus, and they meet every Thursday from 12 to 1. And I went there first because I was looking for a Toastmasters club. I was new at being a freelancer, and I was looking for the next client. But before you can find the next client, you need to go out and network. And you need to get really good at communicating. So writing is one skill, creating those scripts, but speaking and speaking in the moment is a different skill entirely. So I thought, I'd been introduced to Toastmasters a year or two before by a coworker who really recommended it. So it was stuck in my head, and it might have taken a while to get there, but I did eventually. And I went there to get better at networking and to get my brain to stop turning off when it just ran out of things to ask.
Yes.
Which gets really awkward really quickly. And so what I found really useful about Toastmasters was the table topics in particular. Even the first meeting I went to where you can participate without being a member yet is the table topics. So I got up there and I was shaking and the blood's rushing and they hand me 2 picture cards because that was the prompt that day, and you're supposed to make a story out of these 2 awkward pictures. And it took me a while because you're sitting there trying to think of what you're going to say, and it's just 1 or 2 minutes, but boy, when the first time you get up there, it's pretty tricky. But I kept going and I became a member because that club in particular loves their humor, and they're really welcoming, and they are really supporting, and they're really good at just figuring things out on the fly when things don't work, because things fall apart inevitably at some point. And we have so many different people there, from English as a second language to retirees to job seekers to people like me who are in between. I'm not seeking a job, but I am in a way. I'm seeking clients. So it's a great club, and I'd recommend anyone who would be interested and who's in the area of Beaverton, for sure.
Great. And now table topics is that 1 to 2 minute impromptu speaking where you get up in front, you don't know what you're supposed to say, someone hands you a question or props, and it's up to you to talk for at least 1 minute to 2 minutes about something related to those prompts or that quote that you might have.
Without using filler words.
Right.
Which I'm sure I've used already, but you try not to.
Right.
And it's a learning experience.
Cutting down on the filler words, trying to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
Which I imagine is key to the stories that you tell, too, in your animation.
Yes, it is. And it's a good way to practice those skills, because filler words can really cut you down when you're in a conversation where you're trying to make it an impression, as I think most people start to realize eventually. So I think Toastmasters has really helped as well in just building that confidence to not get so wrapped up in what other people think of me. I mean, it's never going to go away, but not to internalize it to the point where you can't function when all eyes are on you, which was really helpful because I finally built up the courage to apply to give a 40-minute talk to some technology conferences. And I went and delivered it, and they went really well. And I think Toastmasters was a good segue into building up that confidence, as well as the speaking skills, of course. So it helps quite a bit.
I can imagine a 40-minute presentation to very informed audiences. That's got to be a challenge. How did you apply your Toastmasters skills to that particular type of presentation?
I think going through the process of verbalizing it and constructing that beginning, middle, and end, as you say, was really useful. And I actually used my Toastmasters club to practice sections of the speech before I went and gave it. So, and by practicing it, it got it in my head and it got it in my body, which is the hardest part. You know, that's really where you start to shut down in front of people, as your body betrays you and your voice betrays you, or whatever that happens to be for you,
the weak link
you
is,
as an individual. And so just practicing. I mean, that's the short of it. It's just get up there and practice and practice and practice. And it's interesting, having come from a design background, the amount of design practices that Toastmasters employs, things like critiquing, or what we call the feedback evaluation process, that's very much part of the design process. If you're a designer, you need to be able to take feedback so you can make your design better, so you're taught to go through that process. And to see other people not familiar with that, it's interesting. So I think it's a nice play into all of those skills that I'm trying to piece together with science and art and talking and educating and all those pieces together.
Now, one of the things we come up against in Toastmasters and in the business world is people using and misusing PowerPoint. In a brief way, can you talk about what's the right way to use PowerPoint versus the wrong way? What is it good for?
So PowerPoint is just a tool. And what I saw at Intel while I worked there, and what I imagine a lot of people see in whatever field they happen to be in, is that it becomes a documentation tool. And it's not a documentation tool. It's not something you should be using to forward information. It's a way to deliver information, but it's not a place you store it in. And so a lot of times you'll see these PowerPoints passed around, and I call them slide units. That's what we used to call them at Intel.
Slide units?
Slide units. So it's document slide put together.
Okay.
And some people don't know what that means, but it means you've seen just a slide that has way too much text and way too much bullets, or there's just too much visuals going on. And the point of something like that is to read it. Well, if you're going to read it, shouldn't it live in a Word document versus presentation software, which is what PowerPoint is, whether that's, it doesn't matter if you're using PowerPoint or Keynote or Prezi, which is an online tool. The point is the same. To be delivering it in a personal context, and it's there to support you, not overtake what you're trying to talk about. And so I think what people get lost on is that they're trying to put their thoughts out there, and here's this tool, so let's just dump it in there. And that's not what you need to do. And that was even part of the talk that I gave, is just, no, don't do that.
Okay, don't do that.
Put it away. You are not PowerPoint. Your message is not PowerPoint. That's all about you. And so take a minute with just a pen or a pencil and some paper and jot it out in front of you, 10, 20 minutes. Ask yourself what you're trying to achieve. What's your message there? Who are you talking to? Like, give it some thought about that audience, because even if you know the person really well, just giving some thought about what's going on in their life, or what you know about what they value or their risk tolerances, can give you an idea of how you can give your message to the people you're going to be talking to, so that it actually resonates with them.
Thank you so much. We're getting short on time, but be sure to tell us the website where we can find out more information.
Yes, so you can learn more information from myself at elucyan.com, ELUCYAN.com, or you can email me directly at Cyrene@elucyan.com.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been really informative. It's another episode of TV Toastmasters, and I'm your host, Erik Bergman. Thank you for being with us. Join us again another time for another great guest.
Welcome to an opportunity to take the next step of your professional speaking journey. I'm Dottie Love, Associate TV Producer and Director. Toastmasters International is one of the largest organizations whose mission is to help improve your speaking skills. And District 7 is expanding your opportunities to do speaking via television. We have four fully equipped television studios, and TV Toastmaster broadcasts to over 500,000 homes, plus a YouTube channel. Who knew? We want to invite you to take advantage of using media and television, either in front or behind the scenes. Let me share a few options that you have. First, you can be a guest on a show. Highlight your business or hobby or your community interest. Anything you're passionate about. Be a featured guest. Secondly, you can train to be a host on an ongoing TV segment. We will train you for that. Third, what about creating your own talk show? We will train you for that as well and give you access to a community media studio to do just that. Or lastly, be behind the scenes, either running a camera or editing shows. You decide which avenue is best for you, and our TV Toastmasters team will help you to navigate to get the most out of your media experience. Personally, I've done them all. I started as a guest, went to hosting, up to directing my own TV show. I don't tell you this to impress you. I tell you this to impress upon you that your personal growth with Toastmasters is directly related to what you take advantage of. And I encourage you to be bold in looking for opportunities to stretch and grow. If this intrigues you, or if you have club members who you think that might be interested in this, please contact us here at TV Toastmasters. I'm Dottie Love, and you can reach me or any of us in the TV Toastmasters family at the contact information at the bottom of the screen. You can also find us on the web. Our website is 7512.toastmastersclub.org.